2020. So thankfully, let's get this year behind us. It has been a year of transition. I don't like to say it's a horrible year because a lot of positive things have come up this year. Welcome again to Spirit Focus with Robert Painley. And I want to, people have a tendency to look at this year as being absolutely horrible. And one of the ways that I just kind of want to start off tonight is that it hasn't been a completely terrible year. Yes, there are some many terrible things that have happened this year, from civil unrest and, neighbor against neighbor with a contentious election and COVID, racial issues across the country that spilled over in a great many ways this year, and so many other things that happened this year that were horrible. But the year itself also was a year of transition. And even in my own life, I look at how many of us are linked to technology in ways that we weren't before. I started this show in 2020. And, through Ruth and Terry and other people and Deb on the Enlightened World Network, starting something and watching it grow and watching it come to fruition in a greater sense is a good accomplishment for 2020. So I like to look at, I'm just that way by nature. I kind of like to look at the positives in life instead of the negative things and dwell on the positives, because it seems to make your life much better. And also from a spiritual sense, it seems to make my life better. That's why working in corporate America, where you have different influences that I don't have if I stay kind of in a spirit-centric focus in my life. I don't have to make that constant transition from one to another. So I look at the positives. I look at the changes in my life, what we're doing. This year has facilitated a move that we did not anticipate, but looks to be for the best in all aspects of my life. Some different types of personal relationships that have just grown and flourished during 2020 in ways that they may not have in a year where we didn't have these issues that we've had. I mean, it has hindered me from maybe going out to people's homes to work with them for hauntings, but I still have done it. I still have done quite a lot of hauntings, quite frankly, in 2020. But I've had to move my readings to an online platform, which I found out I'm very good at. And I didn't know that before because I was never forced into that situation. It's amazing how sometimes when you're forced into a situation, how you rise to a challenge. And I didn't know that I could do all these tarot card readings by phone or do mediumship readings by phone. I always was really keen on getting with a person where I could sense their energy, but found out I can get that through the phone, through just sensing it, and it kind of honed my skill. So while there are many, many bad things that occurred in 2020, I look at my own personal growth, I look at my own spiritual growth, I look at other aspects of my life that have been positive because of this. I think it's also focused me on family, friends, the things that are more important in life. It wasn't so much some of the travel. I found I'm just as content being at home and finding things to do with my husband and finding projects and making our home nicer and the landscaping and all these other things that we wind up doing that we just never got done before, didn't do what we hired somebody to do, that we found that we got some satisfaction and appreciation of during this year. So I want to welcome you. I want to say it's nice to have 2020 in the rearview mirror here very shortly. But with it, look at the positives. I mean, I try and look back if you can in your own life and look at the things that you can do now that you may not have done previously in your life, and be thankful for that. There was an opportunity for growth. If you look back to March, April, May, and look at the beginning of this pandemic when it was complete shutdown and how nature kind of came back and how we could breathe the clean air again and how life wasn't as frenetic. All those things were positive. So try and go back and think about this year, not from all the negatives, but look at it from a positive aspect if you can as well. It will put hopefully a better spin on going into 2021 with hope and with the advent of the vaccine, and maybe moving past this finally, and getting on the other side, where we can all get back to what we once previously considered normal, and now we know to be um, probably, very good times that we may have taken for granted. And I don't think that any of us will ever look at life the same way again. And the things that we do, going to the grocery store without a mask on, or having to plan for it, washing our hands 90 times a day, but having hand sanitizer, fighting each other for toilet paper, having people just short of temper because of not being able to communicate well with other people, um, or just having instances in their life and death in their life and sickness in their life that they wouldn't have had but for this pandemic. So try and come away from this year with some of the positives. And if this was a great positive for me, being able to do the show, it gave me an outlet. It gave me a way to communicate with people. It gave me a larger platform. And I'm thankful to the Enlightened World Network and the Enlightened Living Network here, and Periscope and Facebook for expanding their platforms to give people like me an opportunity to express and expand what I do. I never would have probably gotten on Facebook or done this in any way, shape, or form, but for the pandemic. And now I'm comfortable with it, and now I'm very grateful for the fact that we started with Robert's Pajama Party back in, geez, I think it was. Seems like such a long time ago, back in March or April, and did maybe 10, 12 shows that way, and then worked into this version of giving advice and taking questions and talking with people and bringing guests on this year. So I want to thank all the guests that came on this year to give it their time and their expertise and their knowledge to help others. And go back and scroll through those old shows and look at it. I don't tend to look at. I record one of these shows and I move on. But all these shows will be posted on YouTube very shortly. We're moving in that direction. If you want to find some of the other shows that we have done, you'll find them on spiritfocus.com. It's spirit-focus.com. And you will also find them here on the Enlightened World Network on the YouTube channel. So please go look up those and the archives, and when you're bored and before you get back to that normal life that we hope to all get back to in 2021. So thank you all for joining me this year. I really appreciate your time, effort, and your interest, and look forward to working with some of you, hopefully in person, as we get through this coming year. So this time, wow, that was a lot. Okay, so let me get my breath refreshed here. It's beer night here, so that's good. We were out painting the dock. Again, one of those projects that I talked about earlier. We rebuilt our dock outside. It was one of those things that we hired somebody to do, and then they never showed up. And so my husband, who we're finding out is incredibly handy in a variety of ways, decided to go back and take on that project himself, and went out there and rebuilt our dock. In some instances, not the entire thing, but the existing boards, and we're out there repainting it now, so it's going to look fantastic here very shortly. So again, probably one of those projects that if we were both working in the corporate world at this point, we'd probably just pay somebody to go do it and come back to a lovely dock. It feels better sometimes to do these things for yourself, and to have that satisfaction of creating something with your hands and knowing that you did it. And if you haven't taken advantage of that in any way, and have been afraid to do that in some capacity during COVID, give yourself a chance. Have some faith in yourself and try that. So that all said, and that's a long introduction. One of the things that I want to talk about today and again, last week we spent a lot of time answering some questions that people have had through this year, and I received some more questions, and I wanted to go through some of those. So I took them down. Haven't thought about any of them today, so let me get there on my phone. I just kind of sent them to myself here, so hopefully I can access them relatively quickly. What was the first? I think because we left off last week, there were still some. I added more to it. Let's see. I think where we ended off was one of the things. It's strange being a medium because it's strange what people ask you. And I don't know. I don't remember if I answered this question last week, but somebody asked. They always ask, it's like, well, give me the lotto numbers. He, and they laugh and they think it's brilliant and original. Everybody asks me that question. Uh, but understand that lotto numbers are not important because typically money as such is not um, important from a spiritual perspective. When we talk about your spiritual growth, typically money doesn't figure into it. People want money to make their life easier, but what you find is that people, by and large, you look at the 95% of people who win the lottery are have spent their way through the money within 2 years of winning it. So money doesn't make your life happier. What money does is buy you freedom and opportunity. And, we're guaranteed the pursuit of happiness, not actual happiness in our Constitution in this country. So it's that pursuit. But, money can buy you opportunities and it can do things for you. Actually, my husband has Mindful Money Matters tomorrow at noon. So watch his show tomorrow. We'll talk more about money. But I look at money as a means to an end, not something that, I've known a lot of people in my life who have had a lot of money and have lost a lot of money and have not had money and all spectrums. And the people that I find that are the happiness are people who don't make money front and center in their life. We all need money. We all need money to live and survive and eat and pay for a house and have our cell phones and have a car and all those things that we like to have in our life. But money in and of itself is a tool. And, like any tool, you can use a tool in a good way and a tool in a bad way. And so, but from a spiritual sense, that's how I want you to look at it is, how, money can be good or it can be bad. They say that money is the root of all evil, which it can be. But giving money and supporting charities and things like that nature is a very good thing. So how you choose to use your money, how you acquire money and what you do with it and how you manage it and where it holds a place in your life is what's important from a spiritual sense. So in the money should never be the paramount aspect of your life. There are many things that are more important. I'll always be thankful. I had a boss by the name of Mike Jones and Brett Sullivan. And both Mike and Brett were, my mom was passing. I worked for a company here in town. I won't give their name out, but I'll mention these individuals' names. But because they were just wonderful to me. When my mom was passing, I had to spend a lot of time away, and the company was very, very good to me. And these individuals in particular, I had one time where Mike Jones came down to me, and he knew my mom was going to pass relatively soon, and asked me, what the hell I was still doing in the office. He said, family is first, go take care, do what you need to do with your family, work is like third or fourth down on the list. We'll figure out a way. We'll take care of it. Go, just do what you need to do. And that's where it is and I'm always thankful. If you're out there, Mike and Brett, thank you very much for that. I really appreciate you taking the time. That's almost been 5 years ago now. I appreciate you taking that time and effort and putting that perspective for me, because I'm one of those guys who feels an obligation when I commit to something to do what I commit to. And I would have committed more and stayed longer and done things, but it was important for me to have that time with my family. So I don't know if I ever adequately said thank you, but I do thank you for that time. So for them, it wasn't about the money, that they would figure out a way, to manage, that the company would move on, that the team would move on, and it would find ways, and everybody pitched in. So, to my team at the time too, who all pitched in, I'm super appreciative of everybody that did that. So, so again, we're back to lotto numbers in particular when people joke about that, but there's a reason we don't get them. First of all, if I got them, why would I give them to somebody else? I'd play them myself. Not really. And then could do a lot of things with it from a spiritual sense or from a philanthropic sense. But it's not what's meant for me to do. My gift is to be able to help people with their life course. And that's my gift. That's what I'm supposed to do. And I trudge along and plug along with that as much as I possibly can. And through that process, I have enough to eat, and I have enough to sustain life, and I have enough to do the things that I need to do in life so that I can progress forward professionally. And just, I want people, to think that, spending money on the lottery is probably not the best use of your money because the odds are so against you typically. But feel free to do whatever you want with it. But let me tell you, I can tell, it depends on what you do. Is the lottery an addiction? Are you spending a couple bucks a week doing it? Or are you spending your entire paycheck doing it? There's a big difference between those two things. And look at what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish. So depending on the person, depending on the circumstances, I don't mind. I play the lottery occasionally, just for the sake of doing so. If it becomes a huge jackpot or something, I'll throw a couple bucks into the kitty. Sometimes just to do it. I have never won anything in it. I have a lot of loss in that. So it's not that I'm against the lottery. It's that I just don't. I'm not lucky in that way. There are people who are out there who win a lot, and I know I have clients who are professional gamblers, quite frankly, and people who I know who are mediums who have won at the lottery and are very lucky people. I'm just not happy to be one of them. I would never give lotto numbers. I don't. It's not something I've ever felt comfortable doing. If you feel that you want to do that, but quite frankly, I see the numbers given out sometimes in horoscopes and that sort of thing to play these 6 numbers. Well, if there are 12 zodiac signs and that would be 1/12 of the entire population of this country, playing that same number, the lotto jackpot would be very small. So, look at the odds of playing those numbers. I don't think it's great. That's just my opinion. But that's my opinion. Giving why I don't give out lotto numbers to anybody, and why you typically would not get them. I know people joke about it sometimes, but I don't see the use in it, quite frankly. Now, let me add something to that. While I'm thinking about it, again, this is unscripted, so I'm just answering questions. But there are some kind of numbers that come up that are very important when I'm doing a reading. So sometimes when I'm doing a reading, they'll tell me, what they're talking about, March 15th or something. Sometimes numbers are very important when I'm giving a reading for validation purposes. Sometimes they'll show me the number 2 and they'll tell me about siblings and like you've got 2 brothers or 2 sisters or whatever it happens to be. So there are times where numbers are very important through a validation process in the readings that I'm giving, but usually lotto numbers aren't among them. So a little caveat there on numbers. Let's see here. Do you see angels? I do. Excuse me. What I'm seeing now is an eyelash. So, angels to me are interesting because I have many friends, Terry Angel and Rosa Shapiro and other mediums that I know, Pamela Lavella, who worked with angels and angelic energy all the time while she was here on this plane, and how I see angels. And I differentiate angels. You have angels, you have guardian angels, you have archangels, so when people talk about angelic energy, it's a tiered process for me. So when I work with people, I like to figure out what type of energy it is. Specifically, people ask me how I see them. So depending on whether it is a guardian angel, which could be your mom who passed, or the child who passed, or somebody that you don't even know in your family tree or in your family's history, or somebody completely unbeknownst to you. Those are all, that could be guardian angels that I will connect with and are telling me things they're there for your higher good. So I will encounter that energy. And they appear as I would see any person. But I know that they are particular to you and particular to your life path. So that's from a guardian angel perspective. So then I would see there's a variety and hierarchy of angels. So whether it's angels themselves or archangels, I will sense them and see them and feel them in different ways. So angelic energy. So for an example, how I see angels, typically, if I'm in a home and I see an angel and they need to communicate with me, I will see them almost as kind of like almost a stone figure as such, so like a sculpture. And when they're in that form for me, I kind of only get yes or no answers. So I have to be very selective with my questions for what I'm trying to accomplish there. So I'll get a head nod, yes, or just a head shake, no, from that energy. And understand that angels aren't, so you have guardian angels that were, you may perhaps mostly uh, have a kind of a human soul attachment, energy experience with them. Angels themselves are different beings. And so since they are, it's a different frequency mostly, and it's tapping into that frequency. Uh, so tapping into that angelic energy and seeing how they communicate with me. They don't speak to me. I've never had one speak to me. Um, and again, that's just to me. Other mediums may have different things. Again, everybody's gift is different. This is how I get angels and how I communicate with them. But it's that head shake. So I'm very careful to ask yes or no questions, and they're very stoic. I don't get a lot of movement at all, just kind of mostly the head shake. And but the energy is amazing around them. It's kind of white glowing lights. They have an aura around them. I know when it's all kind of trying angelic. That's the word I'm trying to find. Angelic energy when it's there. I can feel it. I can sense it. I know the difference, and it's a very distinct energy from masculine and feminine energy. So the when I get archangels, on the other hand, that is a whole other dimension as far as love and feeling and power and strength of what they can do, what they do. So all of those are different. But the only difference has been when I have worked with souls that are trying to cross, I'm trying to move them. Some souls do challenge me and want to sometimes see an angel before they'll cross to make sure that they're going to a good place. And Spirit has been very good at showing usually just the most beautiful uh, movement of, I don't even know how to describe it. It's so smooth and it's just there. The flowing energy around this being, this angelic energy, this angelic being, the flow, the colors and the glow and just the energy is amazing. And so I'll ask the soul that I'm working with, can they see what they're presenting? They always have. And then they believe, and then they will usually just go ahead and have that little bit of extra faith to move to where they need to be on their spiritual journey. So it's a great question. It's hard to describe sometimes because unless you really encounter to see it, it's kind of it's not something that you encounter kind of on an earthly basis. Sometimes the movies come very, very close to what I do see, which is kind of fun. But I think people who have encountered that energy through a near-death experience can maybe, hopefully, there's a lot of people who maybe can explain. I'm not the most descriptive person probably in the world with some of this, but that's how I see it. And I'm not going to give you my truth as how I see things. And I won't pretend to understand or tell anybody what other people see. But the question was how I get it, how I see it. And that's exactly what I do. If you have any more questions about that, I've never had it drawn. I've never had that done. Maybe one day that would be kind of a fun thing to do, is to have some kind of artist kind of maybe picture what I see, because it's quite something to see, and you all will experience it. Maybe not on this plane, but you will all experience that energy at some point, and it's unforgettable when you do see it, especially if you can hopefully see it on this plane while you're here. Also, I guess again, since I'm just answering these off the cuff, one of those other things that you should see or that you may encounter are angels who kind of walk around looking like humans sometimes, that will take on kind of like a human appearance, and that will step up and help you or help others in times of accidents, in time of needs, in time of prayer. So it's not to scare you, so that they can comfort and can come to you. Particularly your guardian angels will appear mostly in this form. They're not going to have wings, or they're not going to have anything else that you might expect. They will appear in a form that would be more familiar to you and that you'd be more accepting of. So kind of expect that when you're working with some of that angelic energy. Let's see. What other questions do we have? Bear with me as I look. Ah, okay. My mom says she feels someone or something looking at her when she sleeps. How can we tell what it is? Interesting question. So, first of all, the questions I would have in this, so I'm not going to be able to answer the question directly because I don't know enough. First thing would be, has she seen spirits like this all her life? Is this a first time experience? Did it happen after a tragedy? Did it happen after she lost somebody? Those would be kind of some preliminary questions I would ask. If it is new to her, then I would maybe attach it to something that maybe a recent passing. Did she recently move into a new home? Did she have a recent change? Did you bring anything into the house that wasn't yours that may have some interesting energy to it? So those are also questions I would ask. Typically, when I would go visit a client, I would go in the house and sense for myself what energy I feel in the house. But with COVID here, I'm going to ask those type of questions so that we can kind of pinpoint maybe what that would be and why this is something new. I had a client I instructed or told you all about last week, the week before, where the spirit had been around for 38 years and she knew exactly who the spirit was. So it was one of those aspects where I didn't have to try and figure out who it was, and that's nice for me. It was just tapping that energy and communicating with that energy so I could get the messages that needed to be delivered, and they were. When it's a spirit that's unknown, again, we've talked about protection and protecting yourself. If you don't feel threatened, try and work with it, invite it in. If you don't feel threatened, but protect yourself first. Now, if it's not in God's light, you cannot communicate with me in any way, shape, or form. You can protect yourself by going into prayer, by going into into picturing yourself in a bubble of white light, God's white light, or something of this nature, something that you may feel protective with. I have many ways of doing that myself. But I don't know that, again, I don't know all the circumstances here or what the ability level of your mom may be, or if she has any ability, or she's empathic, or what it may be, because it could range from anything. This could be, it's not typically demonic, but it could be range from demonic to angelic and anything in between that spectrum. So my question, I guess I would just tell your mom to get in contact with me, and we'll try and figure out what this is. And if it's bothering her, fine. If it's not bothering her, maybe she can tap into it and maybe find out if it's somebody trying to give her a message, and she can do this by herself. So that would be my advice. Not having all the particulars. And if you do have a question like this, the more particulars you give me, the better, kind of more specific my answer could be. But it's kind of about as specific as I can get without knowing additional information. Let's see here. Who was your favorite client? Well, that's a loaded question. Let's see. I will say all my clients have been my favorite, but some stand out. So I don't think there's a favorite one. I think what's interesting for me is when I learn things from my clients, from their responses, or I learn something new. So it may not be the client themselves, but it may be the situation or something that spirit teaches me in that forum. It could be anything from, I think it was so interesting the one time, I've told the story many times about, learning how to tell the difference when I would sense a soul that has crossed, particularly from a stillbirth or an abortion, or a soul that didn't quite make it onto this plane, or made it onto this plane and left very quickly thereafter, and how that soul is presented to me so that I know. I found that fascinating. I find specifics sometimes very fascinating and intriguing when they give me very names that are just odd, like Snickers, or Gato, or things that are, that is the name. There's no other possibility, and they're very, very clear about it, and it means something to my client. That's always spectacular and surprises me. But I have to say, I think one of my favorite interactions with a client it really has to be David Cassidy, because before David died, and I met him the week before he passed, um, he wasn't at all as I expected him to be. And so I think from that perspective, and his his interest in me, my journey, my soul's journey, he was incredibly spiritual, about his children and his family and his life experience and what he'd gone through, and how he was passing at that time. Uh, I learned so much about just grace and dignity in death and in passing, and the same with my mom. Just that same grace and dignity. I don't think I would. I hope my aspiration would be that I would have that same courage at the end that they displayed. I hope I would. I don't think I will. It's just not my nature. I'm very much a man in that regard, where I like to, if I get a little sniffle, I'm complaining out the yin yang about it. So, my husband will attest to that. But that's what I found from David that surprised me. It shouldn't have surprised me, but I think that some people, I've had a lot of people that are in the public eye that have been clients, but David stood out in a way because he's the only one that I knew who was passing, and I knew that passing was imminent. And when you're working with a client in that way, and you're able to connect with somebody that he's going to be meeting very, very shortly on the other side, it was poignant, and it gave him peace, which I appreciated from spirit, because it was the right thing to do, and it was a privilege for me to be able to do that and help interpret. So that's one of the things that I think, from not from a favorite client perspective, but I think one of the things that I gleaned the most from was that interaction. There have been so many that I've really learned a lot from, but that one for me kind of stands out because of, I think, just the differences in preconception of what I thought of him, because I was a fan of his since I was a little kid, and to see him in person, and to see him in that state, and to see him suffering, and be that, and to have the grace and dignity and courage that he went through at the end, made a mark on my soul. And so I do appreciate that from David, and I do still, as I thought, I kind of had a peek at the next question while I had this, and the next question was, did you ever encounter the same spirit twice? And so moving from that into this question, yes. The answer is definitely yes. So there are some, I had multiple clients that I've worked with numerous times, and I do get their mom, I get their dad, or whoever wanted to come through beforehand, will usually make a reappearance. Sometimes if that client is going through something unbeknownst to even the client, I will have them, because I've encountered that energy before, or that soul before, or that ghost before, and they will come and make another appearance and get me to contact. So it's a lot of clients I will contact out of the blue sometimes, and they'll say, I was just thinking about it. I was going to call you. This is what's going on. I'm like, yeah, I know. I got your mom yesterday, and this is what you told me. So I felt I needed to call you, and how can I help? So I do get them numerous times, and there's a lot of, so not only do they come through when they need to talk about a client, but they will come through when I need help. So it may not even be in relation to somebody they're working with, but if I encountered a soul, for example, that committed suicide, and I go into a home, and I'm starting to work with a soul that is stuck because they too committed suicide, I may put these two souls together so they could communicate, so that the other soul may have an easier crossing, and they will understand that they can cross, that they are not condemned to hell because of what they did, and that sort of thing. So sometimes I put those souls together. So I do encounter some of these souls that I've worked with in the past, because it's helpful to other souls that I'm currently working with, or it is in relation to getting information to someone that they need to, need to contact, because I'm still in contact with a client. And sometimes I haven't seen this client for years, and I'll get a ghost out of the blue, or a spirit. It doesn't have to be a ghost. It can be just a spirit that pops in and said, "Hey, you need to talk to my grandson. This is what's going on." And I'll call the grandson. I was like, "Oh, sorry," or text him or something. I said, "Sorry, no, I haven't seen you in 3 years. Just heard from your grandmother. Apparently, this is going on in your life, and this is what she has to say about it." Or, they've been trying to communicate with you. You're ignoring them. This is what they want you to know. Pay attention to these signs, whatever it happens to be. So that's always fun, and it's always good to give those messages. And it gives me some continuity with some of my old clients that were wonderful people. But again, like I've said numerous times, it's a horrible business model what I do sometimes, because I see a client, and hopefully through our one interaction, it should be the last time. Hopefully I need to see them, get them on their correct life course, or give them the message that they're supposed to get from spirit, and they move on and I move on. But a lot of times I do have some clients that are constantly in my orbit, and do get a continuing set of messages for whatever reason. I'm in the orbit, so it's fun, it's enjoyable. Again, I love what I do, and I love being able to do what I do. And but so yeah, so I do see spirits multiple times. Okay, going through these questions pretty quickly today. Let's see. What if you could change? What would you change about your gift if you could? Let me think about that. Let's see. What could I change? What would I change? I think one of the things that I would change now, because I can't change anything that's happened in the past. So, because I think if I could change something in the past, I would have accepted my gift much earlier and just kind of ran with it instead of being so afraid of it. That I would have liked to have changed. No, I can't. So all I can do is move forward. What would I change now? Tough question. Good question. I think what I would change now might be, again, I hate to say this, because I get the gift that I'm supposed to have, and my gift is my gift, and I don't want it to seem as if I'm jealous of other people's gift, or that I feel slighted in some way because I'm not able to do something, because I have so many that Spirit has given me and afforded me now. So I don't want to seem like a glutton on the gift giving side of things. But like I said, one of the things that I don't get to do much still is get to see the other side. It would be great to be able to do that. I have friends from meetings who do. I'm just not one of them. And so hopefully at one point they will allow me that privilege. If they don't, I'm not gonna argue with them. I will see it eventually. So I don't have to hasten that process in any way, shape, or form. But that would be something that I kind of would change, because I don't know if because I always try, it's just my inquisitive mind. I always like to try and think of why they don't let me. And I think because I work with certain clients, and I work with certain souls, that if I knew too much, it might influence people in a bad way, in some way. I don't know what that way would be. So I think they kind of keep me, or I'm just not ready for it. I have to, it may be so enticing or so wonderful to see that it blows my mind in some way, and I'm not able to do what I do, or or I may give the wrong advice because of what I see. So there's a reason. I don't know what it is. I don't question what that reason is, but that's something that I probably would change if I had that choice. I don't have that choice. I ask for things with Spirit. Sometimes they're granted, sometimes they're not, and when they're not, I just assume there's a reason why it's not, and I just move on, and am thankful for what I do have versus for being upset about what I don't have. And I think that's my big takeaway from when I ask for things with this gift is, am I ready for it? Am I prepared for it? Is this something that I should have? Is any of those? I don't know the answers to any of those questions. I'm not privy to them. I don't talk to Spirit in that way where they give me that type of information on my own soul's journey. There's things that I'm supposed to do, that I'm supposed to live through. So that's why I rely on some of my medium friends to help me out in that regard. And they're tricky. Some of my medium friends, they'll go so far and they'll tell me some things, but they're tight-lipped on others. And while it bothers me when they do that, I understand, because I do that to my clients as well, where I know what they're supposed to be doing, or I see the consequences for actions that they're doing. And but I can't sometimes talk about it because they have to live through that experience. The soul needs to have that imprint and that experience. And if just hearing about it was enough, there's no reason to be on this plane. So we're here for experiences. We're here to learn things, and we have to go through that process, no matter how hard and painful it is. Sometimes we don't tend. Sometimes, gotta look at the time. We don't tend sometimes to thank spirit for the good times. We tend to ask for help when we are down, and when we're happy and elated and things are going our way and things are going good. We don't tend to give thanks and with the same reverence and same prayer that we would take when things aren't going well. We don't seem to do that as often uh, when things are going good for us personally. That's something that I would ask people to look at and change in 2021, if you can, is to give thanks for what you have, for what gifts you're given, for the people in your life, not for what has happened to maybe family members of yours, but for uh, positive things that have happened for them, that weren't touched by the virus, or weren't touched by hardship financially, or weren't touched in some other way, in a negative way. Pray for those people just as hard as you would for the people who are being impacted in a negative way. Um, it's just as important to do that. And that's kind of one of those things that I would ask that you do and take on for 2021. Let's see. I hope I answered that question. Um, okay. Do you get information differently from tarot cards than you do for spirits talking to you? Interesting question. I think we're going to end there too when we're done with this question. Um, Yes, in a word. So tarot is, for me, is completely different than when I do a mediumship reading. So I do charge differently for that as well. So if you hired me for a tarot reading, it's different than a mediumship reading. Although when I do tarot reading, there's a lot of mediumship that comes into it because I can't stop the messages from coming. Um, so tarot is a tool, and so I look at tarot, and I use tarot a lot in what I do, because sometimes it's disconcerting to have somebody looking at you, staring at your face, waiting for you to get information from the other side, or to interpret that information. Because if there's a symbol or a sign and I'm trying to put it in context with what they're trying to tell me, sometimes I'm sitting there thinking for a minute while I'm trying to understand what they're trying to convey, if they're not being very, very clear. So tarot, sometimes, I'll be talking to somebody and I'll say, "Oh, hold on, we're going to confirm this with tarot later on," and then I will do a tarot card reading as part of a house cleansing or a mediumship reading, and it gives the client something to look at other than staring at my eyes, wondering what's going to come out of my mouth next. So I will do that frequently. But the other end is that tarot will give me answers sometimes and point me in directions um, that may be unclear from me, or I'm not getting, or I'm not understanding clearly from the source, from spirit. So, uh, so from both, I guess both ways, I think are a little. I use them in conjunction with one another, as you would. I mean, I can build. I guess I could build a model airplane using glue and tearing things apart. But sometimes I want to use tweezers and tools and other things to put things together, and that's what tarot does for me. Now, there are some people who use tarot because they are psychics and they aren't mediums, so they're not getting information from an outside source. They're not talking to dead people, as we would call them, dead people. They're not talking from somebody from spirit, better said, and they're only getting information conveyed to them through the cards themselves. And it doesn't have to be the cards. It could be, through a crystal ball, or through a mirror, or water, or something else that they're able to focus on to get information from. But in this way, if you go to somebody who just does tarot card readings, very unusual. It would be unusual to find out that they were mediums as well. Mediums kind of tout that they are mediums to let you know, because I'm getting information directly from the source, from a spirit, to tell me what the message is, and give me, so I can hear it, I can see it, I can see them. Um, and sense what they're trying to tell me. And that doesn't happen usually through the tarot cards. So that's the difference between the two. I use it as a tool in my mediumship readings. Sometimes when people just want a tarot card readings, because it's sometimes I use it as a predictor of future events more so, because what the information I get from spirit usually is related to that person's personal growth or messages that they're not getting or something of that nature, where the tarot cards will be very specific about, are you going to move? Boom. Yes. Is there somebody else in the relationship? Is somebody doing something in this relationship that good or bad, and what is it? So what's happening? And a lot of those answers come from tarot that I may not get from a mediumship source. So I do use both, so yes, I do get different information using tarot cards than I do from mediumship. And a lot of times the tarot cards will be a confirmation of what I'm being told by spirit, so that it helps me, it kind of gives me a secondary source of confirmation rather than the validation just from the client that I'm in front of. It will tell me that I'm right before I even relay that information to my client. So a lot of information. That's a lot of questions, and I appreciate the questions. Thank you very much for sending them. I hope that these are helpful. I think what I'm going to start doing is this is a long format to go through and listening to questions. I may start to do this in a one-off scenario so that people kind of get it better. And it's a little shorter version, so you don't have to sit there for an hour, 45 minutes and listen to the entire show. So for those who stuck around, I thank you. For those who are watching, I appreciate your time and watching the show. If you want to communicate with me, please feel free to reach me at Robert Painley at spirit-focus.com is the best way to reach me. You can reach me through Enlightened World Network as well, through YouTube, my YouTube channel, which is Robert Painley, Instagram, Robert Painley Medium. There's so many ways. My name's always attached to it typically, so go ahead, find me. I'm easy to find on the web. So I look forward to chatting with you. I look forward to answering any questions that you may have. I wish you all a wonderful, prosperous, lovely new year. I pray for all of you and just wish you the best. And congratulations on making it through 2020. I hope you all have a lovely evening and a lovely new year. Thank you.